Thanks for joining us in the studio with 519. I'm your host, Dan Savoie. This time we talk with Paul Stanley of KISS, who chats about his R&B and soul roots that he brings out in his new band Soul Station. I sat down with Paul to talk about Soul Station, Motown, Detroit, Philly, and of course, KISS. Before we sit down with Paul, let's check out a little bit of his latest music video, an original song called I.O.I.
Darling, I was a fool to deny all those things my heart was saying that you said we're through. If there's a chance, I'll take it. Whatever it takes, I'm a man. And I'm proud. I was wrong. Now I'll fight to get you back in my arms. I'll be strong. Give me time and you'll see it. I'll make you believe it. I realize that I'm lost here without you, and I wanna live my life loving you. Yes, I do.
2020 is off to a big start for you. First, there was the Dubai concert. Now your first single is out from the new album, and the new album is on the way. So it sounds like 2021 is going to be a lot busier for you.
It seems so, and isn't that what makes life exciting? Is finding new challenges and finding new mountains to climb. That's really what I think life is about. So, in the midst of a pandemic, where let's face it, for most of us, it's been an inconvenience, but for 500,000 people, if not more, it's been devastating. So with all that being the case, I have tried to reaffirm how great life can be and that you need to live it.
Yeah, you've been tweeting and Facebooking a lot of pictures of you outside being very active. So you're trying to live the best life you can live.
Well, the world is still open. So if you're smart enough to take the precautions that are necessary, you can, go about your business within reason. And for me, there's just nothing better than having some time to myself outdoors. So I've been doing that as frequently as possible.
On an album bursting with a giant Motown R&B and soul vibe, you chose Ooh Child, a song by a Chicago group, as the first single. So why not something Motown, and why did you choose that one?
I'd like to say it's possibly because it's such a timeless song, but really at the moment, it's a song that reflects optimism and hope. And when it first came out and I heard the Five Stair Steps and QB was the actual group that did it at the time. They had an additional member. But when I heard that song, it was poignant. It sang about that things would get better for people, and that one of these days we'll walk in the rays of a beautiful sun. And it was put so eloquently and yet simply. It's a song that, interestingly, doesn't come to everybody's mind when they think of that era. And yet, as soon as it starts, people go, "Oh, I love that song."
Motown and the early R&B soul sound must be very important to you. Where and how did that find you?
Well, I think the music of the Motor City and Tamla Motown and it really was not, although it came from an urban area and miraculously from a lot of projects. You got the Four Tops, Martha and the Vandellas, the Temptations, the Supremes, all these Marvin Gaye, Smokey and the Miracles. It was music that everybody could relate to. Certainly with me, it resonated really clearly. I remember hearing Dancing in the Streets. And to me, you want to talk about a rock anthem. That's an anthem about everybody get out and summer's here. And, dancing in the streets was such a great image. The imagery of it was amazing. And I was lucky enough when I was in my early teens to see Otis Redding live. I saw Solomon Burke. That music's always been a part of my wheelhouse. That's been part of the foundation of what I do. I think that no matter what kind of music you make, your music is always better for having been influenced, even in ways that may be subtle, by other types of music. If it just becomes incestuous, if you're just replicating something that you heard and you're doing the same thing, well, I think it tends to become mimicry.
You must have a Detroit soul at heart because, Detroit is important to KISS, obviously, and now you've chosen something that's very based in Motown Detroit.
Well, the phenomenon of Detroit, whether it's rock history and its embracing of us, or the beginnings of Motown, where you had Berry Gordy and really grooming a star system of grooming, not unlike Hollywood, but it was revolutionary. You had a guy, Paul Reiser, who was in his mid-20s orchestrating everything from Papa Was a Rolling Stone to Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Crazy talent from this area. I think there's something about Detroit, and I think there's something about blue collar workers, and I think there's something about a commonality that Detroit has that I relate to.
Are there any KISS songs you've written that were inspired by that Motown sound?
I think that Motown really, or Philly soul, but certainly Motown was an influence in certain songs. There's a song on the album Unmasked, which may not be one of my favorite albums, but there's a song called What Makes the World Go Round. And that really that's a Spinner song. The only difference is we did it with guitars instead of piano voicings, and veered away from really what that song was written as. Shout it out loud. Well, the night's begun and you want some fun. Do you think you're gonna find it? That's the Four Tops. That's Levi singing lead and the Tops answering him. So there's some pretty unmistakable things. I was made for loving you, baby, standing in the shadows of love. So it's in there, it's in the DNA.
We can now add soul R&B to your vocal catalog. Explain the differences between Soul Station compared to maybe Phantom of the Opera, and then compared to doing KISS.
Well, interestingly, the one thing that connects the three at some point or another is falsetto. I Was Made for Loving You, the midsection of that is falsetto. There's a few scenes in Phantom of the Opera, which are falsetto. A lot of the lead singers in the genre we're talking about, whether it's Delphonics or Stylistics or Eddie Kendricks in the Temps, falsetto plays a big part in it. It's kind of like a masculinity without relying upon chest pounding or machismo. It's and that I relate to. I relate to the idea of strength having nothing to do with flexing muscles.
Is this stuff harder to sing?
It takes some discipline. When I'm writing these songs, it's I hear it in my head, and I know what I'm going for. When you're singing somebody else's songs, and I remember the same thing when I did Phantom. When Music of the Night starts, you better nail it because everybody knows it, and you're walking in some pretty big shadows. So I think that when we do songs that are iconic, I don't think that impersonating is the answer because that's surface. I think what you have to bring to it is an understanding of the emotion. You have to understand where it's coming from, the passion of it. Otherwise, you might as well be Rich Little. You might as well be somebody mimicking. And that wasn't what this was about. And I think what comes across with Soul Station is this incredible reverence and love for what we do. Everybody in the band has played with everybody from Smokey to Stevie to Natalie Cole, Whitney Houston, and on and on and on. And I think there's such a joy in doing the Delphonics, doing Blue Magic, doing all these iconic songs and doing them the way they're meant to be done. In other words, not a Las Vegas version where it's played twice as fast. Hey, how you doing? And it's we do them the way I remember them being recorded. And again, it's not about copying it note for note as much as it's about understanding the song, and we all find our way into it. I think that's what makes a great actor. That's what makes a great song stylist is knowing the intention of what you're doing.
How authentic did you go when you made the album? I mean, some of those magical moments on the original albums were captured live and in glorious mono.
Yeah, well, I think that we were never going to confuse perfection with passion. And honestly, I've heard some versions of these songs done where, to me, it just missed the mark. It's not about perfection. It's not about showing off your chops as much as celebrating the music. To that end, this wasn't done with a microscope. This was, as I said, a celebration of the music. And the last thing that I wanted it to be was sterile.
Did this take longer to record than the KISS album?
Not at all. I think we cut 9 or 10 basics in a day and a half. So that's, again, what I'm talking about. It's the feel and having people who listen to the music and get it. I don't want to do with my fingers, but I will get it. Mm-hmm. So it was just, we just powered through the songs. Then we added the horns and the strings, but the band of, I'd say 6 people at least, we were in there live. I was in there when I was actually sick, doing guide vocals. It didn't matter. But everybody was there to preach, to really to get it right and to celebrate the music.
How did you select some of the band members? And were there a couple that were hard to get?
I don't want to say I was lucky. I could say it's either the planets lined up or it's God's work or it was meant to be. Everybody fell into place. It was just crazy. Most of the people had never worked together. And yet at this point, it's so much, they call it a family. I mean, people come over to my house. We're over here having fun. When we're in the studio, we have just a great time. It's such a melting pot of influences and ethnicities. And it really came about organically. Pardon me. There's nobody who's in it because we couldn't get somebody else. There were no auditions. It just fell together. And it's weird. It's just weird how familiar everybody feels to each other. If you watch the videos, it's clear the chemistry and the fun we're having.
In some senses, you're the musical director of KISS, so it must be strange handing over the reins to somebody else for this project.
Interestingly, Alex Alessandroni, who was musical director for Whitney Houston and Pink and Christina Aguilera and Natalie Cole, is the musical director. He and I very much work together. I would almost say that he is the conduit, he's the liaison, because there are certain things that he can interpret for me. For example, the string arrangements and the horn arrangements on 5 of the tracks are all mine. I can't chart them, so I have to sing them. And the trumpet's going to do this, and piano is doing this. So Alex and I work hand in hand. I couldn't imagine surrendering it, quite honestly, because I know this music so well.
So this seems like a great new challenge for you in your career. On the opposite end of that, are there still challenges left for KISS?
The challenge for KISS is to remain at the standard that we set, and to not disappoint anybody until it's over. And that's a challenge. If we were just in our t-shirts and jeans and running shoes, we could do this into our 90s. But when you're wearing 8-inch heels and carrying 30 or 40 pounds of gear and running around the stage, you play beat the clock. You can win for a while, but the clock ultimately wins. So that's the challenge. And that's why I think we all looked at each other and said, you know, the clock is ticking, and let's go out there and give everybody the biggest and best show we've ever done, so that we take a victory lap and that we validate people's allegiance to us and why they've championed us, sometimes in the face of odds.
The Dubai concert was about what you could possibly get. Was that planned as part of the End of the Road tour originally, or did it just happen because of the pandemic?
It literally happened because of the pandemic. We were asked if we were interested in doing a show in Dubai. And as it evolved, okay, it was, okay, tell me more. Okay, we want to break some Guinness World Records. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Tell me more. And it'll be a worldwide telecast, and all the shows that people usually watch on New Year's Eve are not going to be live, and they're going to be repeats. Okay, that sounds really great. And it's going to be this massive outdoor stage. You know, it just kept going, and we went, yeah, okay, sounds like fun. But in the midst of the pandemic, how are we going to keep everybody safe? So we made all kinds of arrangements, and the crew, which over time was about 500 people, and they were tested daily. We were tested, if not daily, every other day. When we rehearsed in Los Angeles, we were in a closed studio. So all things being said, it was a really unique situation. And having not played in almost a year, it was daunting. It was a challenge, but we rehearsed. We were determined to make it as good as we could.
At some point, the pandemic's going to be over and you'll be able to continue the tour. But what if the pandemic goes on? Do you think there will still be an End of the Road last leg?
Well, I do believe the pandemic is going to wind down. I don't think that's going to happen tomorrow. And I think it's going to be quite a while before there are live shows of the magnitude and attendance of what we do and what we need to do. Beyond us, you have to think a promoter has to get insurance, and people have to be safe in showing up. And yes, there's a vaccine, but the vaccine means nothing unless it's in your arm. So there's a lot of variables right now, and we absolutely will pick up where we left off. I don't see that being in the near future at all. And I think that anybody who believes they're going to be seeing massive shows or arena or stadium shows anytime in the foreseeable future is killing, is a little Freudian slip, kidding themselves. And so in the interim, I plan on doing Soul Station and Soul Station gigs. I think those are much more possible and controllable.
And they're more intimate. I personally, my favorite KISS experiences have been the intimate shows. When you did your very first solo tour, I saw you guys on that Revenge Club tour. Those were my favorite shows because they were so intimate. So that's one of the things I think fans are going to get out of this show.
I think so. Look, Soul Station and KISS are in some ways polar opposites, but the thing that they share in common is that contagious, and that's not a good word to use right now, but contagious feel-good atmosphere. People just have a ball at both. At Soul Station shows, people are singing, and when a song begins, you just hear, because immediately it sets off an emotional response. So there's nothing like live music, and I don't really think there are enough people out there making the kind of music Soul Station makes, which is big band, kick-ass music. It's not mushy. Even on songs that we're doing that are might tend towards ballads, the horns and the strings will blow your head off.
There is a different market for this than KISS. So were you aiming for a different market for this band and this album?
I wasn't aiming for anything except to selfishly be a part of a band making music that I missed hearing. But I also believe that when I please myself, ultimately I please some other people, because we're all similar. I think if you do something really well, it will find its audience. And I never thought about demographics or crossover. Look, if somebody doesn't want to allow themselves to listen to this because they love rock and roll, well, that makes no sense to me. But I'm I'm not here to make converts, because converts involves convincing. I don't want to convince anybody of anything. If you don't give it a chance, then you're lost. If you give it a chance and you don't like it, it's like food. You can't not like something until you try it. And if you don't want to try it, c'est la vie.
Thanks to Paul Stanley of KISS for that great interview. Be sure to join us next time on In the Studio with 519. I'm your host, Dan Savoie. We'll see you next time.